This interview is brought to you in association with Rabobank.
The continued growth in kiwifruit production is impressive, but it would appear that there's more to come. With me to talk about opportunities ahead for this amazing industry and what part Zespri will play in that is General Manager of Grower and External Relations, Dave Courtney. Dave, welcome and thanks for joining us.
Morning, Roger. Thanks very much for having me on.
This is an iconic New Zealand industry. I think most New Zealanders know that it's part of our rural landscape, part of our international offering. I'm not sure many Kiwis understand just how big this sector's got. Can we just start by going through a few numbers here about the state of the play?
Sure. So this year we'll produce around about 120 million trays of kiwifruit. So that's about 500,000 tonnes of kiwifruit. That makes us the world's second largest kiwifruit producer now after China, which we think produces about 1.5 million tonnes of kiwifruit. So somewhat smaller than China, but still pretty large in global terms and certainly the world's largest exporter of kiwifruit. And that all that kiwifruit that's grown in China is consumed domestically. So New Zealand is by far the world's largest kiwifruit exporter.
And ours would be the most valuable kiwifruit, I'm picking it?
That's absolutely correct. You know, the New Zealand industry is really the only kiwifruit growing location that has a significant investment in brand and research and development and in marketing to drive value in the category. So by far the most value-creating industry out of all the kiwifruit producing regions in the world.
And speaking of brand, I should offer a happy birthday this year, 20 years of the Zespri brand.
Thanks very much. Actually, this year we have spent a few moments reflecting on where we've come over the last 20 years, including quite a big celebration back in March to mark the 20 years of the Zespri brand. When we started, we were a green-only kiwifruit business, producing probably a third, if not less, than what we produce now. So the business has grown, the industry has grown quite significantly over that period of time, and of course we now have a gold variety in the mix, and hopefully in the near future a red variety and potentially some other varieties as well. So significantly different business.
If we stop to just talk about Sun Gold for a while, you referred to it as Gold 3 also there. For those who don't know, this is the cultivar that replaced the previous gold variety, which was incredibly susceptible to PSA. This is clearly an amazing fruit. It has taken off in terms of the world market. It obviously grows very well. What is it about the product that you think that really is the secret to its success? Is there any one element?
There's not one element other than it needs to be a successful package right the way across the supply chain from grower to consumer. And so what I mean by that is, you know, it needs to make economic sense. So it needs to yield well and grow at a fairly economic cost, if you like, for growers to make sense. Then it needs to work well right the way across the supply chain in terms of storage and ability to deliver to market in top condition. And of course, it needs to work for the consumer in that it tastes great and is convenient to eat and delivers health benefits and all those things that we know consumers want. Now, if you can land on each one of those at the top end of the scale, then you have a really first-class product. And Sun Gold ticks all those boxes, and so therefore it has been incredibly well received in the market by consumers around the world, and is really starting to gather up shelf space and starting to take share of the fruit bowl from other fruits, which is really exciting for the kiwifruit category.
We should mention also, this isn't a fluke. Zespri is a significant investor in R&D. It's a super user of R&D. Let's be honest, if $50-odd million goes into innovation, both from the industry and government in any given year, what is the secret of that investment in terms of how you actually make that investment add up to a product as profitable, as fantastic as Gold 3?
It's about having a clear focus of what you're trying to achieve and where the value in your product sits. So what we do in terms of leading our breeding program is we spend a lot of time in the market trying to understand trends and where the fruit business is going and what consumers want, and then translating that back into signals and clear objectives back at the front end of our breeding program, right back on the sort of in the orchards, the plant and food research sites, so they can start to think about what product we're trying to get at the end of the cycle. And I think the key is keeping a real focus on the market and being demand-led rather than sort of supply-led, if you like, sort of delivering something that only works for one part of the supply chain. For instance, only works for growers but tastes horrible in the market, doesn't work for consumers. And so those clear signals, feedback in a clear way, I think is what drives value in the end.
Now, you grow and export fruit for, say, 60-odd countries around the world. When you're starting to think about those flavours, do you end up with a big mix, or is there some hot spots where you know that you're really hitting on things that are really part of the global consumer palate, I guess?
What we're finding with the Sun Gold variety compared to the Hort 16A variety, which was the original Zespri Gold that was devastated by PSA, is that the taste of that variety really appeals right across the globe, whereas the Hort 16A variety seemed to particularly appeal in the Asian markets. It certainly had its fans in Europe and other countries, but by and large was really well received in those markets. Whereas what we're finding with Sun Gold, a different sort of sweet and acid balance and a different shape and different convenience for eating, is that actually it appeals right across the globe, and I think that is where a lot of your growth comes from, because quite clearly the more markets you can appeal to, the more consumers you can appeal to, the greater your base to drive demand from.
It's probably not that well known that Zespri actually has significant licensed plantings of its kiwi fruit around the world, particularly in Italy for the European market, and big plans to grow that also to meet that demand.
Yes, we do, and the reason for that is, at the end of the day, growing kiwi fruit out of New Zealand is a seasonal business. So we grow here in the southern hemisphere to supply the northern hemisphere off-season. But when you invest as much money in the brand that Zespri does in marketing each year, so this year we'll invest about $150 million around the world, you don't really want to be on the shelf just for 8 months of the year and then disappear from view and come back again the following year to try and reintroduce yourself to consumers. What you want to do is be there on the shelf 12 months of the year. And so to sort of get our seasons to our New Zealand seasons to flow continuously, what we do is we have a 12-month supply business where we source or license the growing of gold kiwi fruit, particularly in Italy, a little bit in France, some in Japan, some in Korea, and that there helps us keep our brand on the shelf 12 months of the year. Now, of course, here in New Zealand, as we increase our production of gold and we gather up more shelf space in the New Zealand season, we want to have a commensurate sort of increase in our offshore presence as well, so we can keep the Zespri brand at a similar level on the shelf for the year.
Okay. Now, when it comes to this growth, where's the investment coming from? I've been asked this question for a while in terms of it costs a reasonable amount of money to set up a kiwi fruit orchard, to invest in the licence for gold, etc., etc. Are you seeing that this growth is coming from within the existing industry, or are you attracting new players?
It's particularly coming from within the existing industry, although we are starting to see new players certainly show an interest in joining the industry, particularly in the form of syndicates. So, a number of investors usually linked with an existing grower or entity within the industry wanting to invest in kiwi fruit, wanting to invest in orchards. So certainly while the growth's been driven from the current members of the industry, there's definitely new blood and new interest being shown right now.
Yeah, a lot of interest from Māori too. You've actually got quite a significant Māori grower base already, and that looks set to increase.
It does look set to increase, particularly as Māori trusts sort of get their head around the land they have and its uses or potential uses. And quite clearly, kiwi fruit, as it stands today, stacks up very well compared to alternate land uses in terms of return per hectare. So there's certainly a very strong interest, and we've just seen some announcements recently of developments happening here in the Bay of Plenty in terms of new plantings, etc., and relationships between Te Tumu Paera and existing trusts and supporting them to get up and running.
Now, Dave, we've got to go, but just earlier on in the interview there, you mentioned that there was a red on the way. This has been telegraphed for a while. You've had amazing success introducing the whole gold category. How far off is a red kiwi fruit?
One of the big impacts of PSA outside of what it did to orchards was it really hurt the plant and food and Zespri breeding program. and particularly the red varieties seem to be very susceptible to PSA. And so it knocked us back a few years in that we lost a lot of our breeding stock. And now we have 3 varieties that we have in pre-commercial trials that are we're getting to get a good sight of around the country in the different growing locations. We certainly know a red, from the consumer point of view, is very enthusiastically received. And so what we're trying to do now is just get that variety that will grow well on orchard and work well through the supply chain and deliver on its promise in the market. In terms of timing, I don't want to commit here because no doubt some growers will be listening will hold me to account if we don't deliver in time. But in the midterm, I would hope that there's a red to join the green and gold in the category.
Look, something to look forward to. Look, Dave, it's an amazing story, one that deserves to be told and told often. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it today.
Thanks very much, Roger.
This interview was brought to you in association with Rabobank.